When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease Goblin YouTube channel. Today's video, I want to talk about and look at George R.R. Martin's writing pace. This video is going to be kind of negative, given like we're going to be taking a kind of a deeper analysis of how much he's written based on his updates. But yeah, we're going to go through and see what the impact of that is on Winds of Winter and how we can maybe use math to predict if Winds of Winter is ever going to come out or if we've kind of just lost hope. So yeah, again, just gonna be another kind of divisive video. So give me your opinions on how you feel about Winds of Winter or what you think is gonna happen. And this is, again, no means to take shots at George, but just to kind of look at what we've been given, right? And before we actually get into the update, I was kind of inspired to do this video by a comment that was left on, I think, my last George R.R. Martin video. And so I wanted to give credit to them because it kind of inspired me to really like take a deeper look at, how much is George actually writing given, what we've been told. It's going to look very suspicious given that as I'm recording this, Preston Jacobs and Red Team Review came out with a video not exactly similar to this, but kind of talking on the same topic. But let's get into it. And let's take a look. So the last major update we got was in December of last year, and he said he was done with about 1,100 to 1,200 pages. And so the major thing here to think about is that he said he has, around 300 to 400 pages remaining left to write. And so let's see how long it's going to take him to get that far, given what he's written so far and the time it's taken to do that. So I'm also going to be generous here, and because George hasn't said anything about Winds of Winter, hasn't said anything about any type of progress this year, given the writers' strike, I don't think he's written much. But I'm just going to say, like, he pushed to that, 1,200 mark. But I also am going to give the numbers for the 1,100 mark pages as well. He could easily be in between those. So I'm going to try to give you guys an approximation on kind of the math that I did. So again, it's been 12 years. So just a straight up mathematic equation. If we're going off of 1,200, he's written about 100 pages a year. It's a little bit less than that if you go off the 1,100 that you don't think he's written like anything at all in this last year. But again, that's about where we're at right now. But that's not really the case, right? We kind of have to take a closer look. That's the average, but that doesn't really tell the story. The thing that has really been apparent from George is that he writes in bulk. So I think the first thing we're going to take a look at is going to be really the most confirmed that we have of George writing a lot of pages. So we don't know exactly how many pages George wrote in 2020. So this was, again, right when the pandemic broke out. It kind of really started, becoming a thing where we were locking down and stuff into like that January, March, kind of the beginning of 2020. And so by the end of the year, he had said that he had written hundreds and hundreds of pages. I took an estimate that this is between 300 and 400. I don't think he would say hundreds and hundreds if it was 200. So I think anywhere from 300 to 400 pages makes sense. So let's again do some basic math, right? So outside of the year 2020, so let's look at the rest of those 11 years. How much has he written? So if we're going off of that number, it comes significantly down. We go from 100 pages a year for those first 12 years, just looking at a straight average. But in this situation, when it's the 11 years and you take out 2020, he's writing anywhere from 72 to 81 pages, given what number you use, 300 or 400 pages. So again, quite a dip. Now let's go even further, right? Like, what does this actually mean? So George is only writing 1.4 or 1.55 pages a week approximately, and that even comes out to only in a month between 5.6 and 6.2 pages a month. So why is that all important? It kind of shows you in context how slow he's writing, right? Like when you really put this into context, and this is the other part of this, right, where I already singled out 2020, but if we even single out the first couple hundred pages of Winds of Winter, he had a good head start, right? Like he had a lot of the sample chapters. he had a good footing, and he talked about this a lot when, you know, after Dance came out and when he started, you know, writing Winds of Winter. He had a lot of kind of leftover from Dance. He had a lot of easy like chapters to do just based upon that's where the groundwork was laid. And so I would tend to believe in those couple of years right after Dance's release, he was a lot easier to write, you know, pages to get through a lot of that. And so I think what we really come to is this time period, I would say like maybe between 2015 and 2020, where I don't think a lot of progress was done on the story. I think you look at the first maybe 400 to 500 pages were probably written in those first 3 to 4 years after Dance, leading up to like 2015, because Dance again was released in 2011. And so you look at that and you go, okay, so we have now accounted for like a bulk majority of what he's done in about 5 years worth of time. So if you're going off of kind of how I look at this, and I think you look at, there's like 7 years almost of just dead time where I feel like George has only written, you know, maybe 200 pages in that time. And so you come to this point and you're sitting here and you look at how crazy it is, because when you look at 300 to 400 pages being done and you look at what I just brought up, right? Like, given all the average for George, right? 2020 was an exception. That's where George had really nothing he could do but write. There was nothing he really could do. And you look at when he had just easier writing to do because of Dance and kind of, you know, closing all those plots. I think it is worrying, right? That the new material has taken so long for him to write. 300 to 400 pages could take years. I mean, base it off of what I just said, right? And this is, again, just factoring in 2020. It's not factoring in the years after Dance. 72 to 81 pages a year. Like, that's 5 to 6 years. Now, granted, again, when he gets to those last like 100 pages, he will start writing faster, and you know, he'll have more updates, and we'll know when he's getting closer. But as of right now, it doesn't look great. Like, we haven't gotten any updates whatsoever this entire year, right? Like, nothing. We've gotten nothing this year. He's been very outspoken about the writer's strike, which leads me to believe that he probably wasn't spending a lot of time on it. And it's very evident because George doesn't talk about Winds of Winter, right? The last time we were getting major updates was in 2022. When he's saying, oh, I got major work done with Cersei's chapters, and I got, you know, actually giving us numbers for where he is in the story. So I think I look at all of that and it doesn't fill me with hope. I'm still, you know, thinking we're going to get this book, but given the way I've just broken this down, given the way that it takes George so long to write, A Dream of Spring doesn't seem likely, right? It just doesn't. And something I want to point out even more is, like, think about how many of these pages he's rewriting. Think about how much stuff that he's writing and then he rewrites. He doesn't like it. He is someone that takes very long to do all these things because of the way he writes in his Gardner style. And so I look at all of this and I'd love to see what your guys' thoughts are on this, because, you know, again, I'm probably not 100% right in all this, but I think this is generally what has gone on, right? It's been, you know, I think there's probably 3 or 4 years in there where George did really, really well, you know, got a lot done. And then I think there's 7, 8 years where it wasn't so good. You know, George, either he was doing other projects, he was focusing on other things, or maybe he just didn't know where to go with the story. And I think that's probably where George is now. I think George is in a spot where, you know, you've been working on the story for 12 years. And at this point, you're still stuck on where to maybe take certain plot lines. Like, how do I make things satisfying? How do I get Dany to Westeros? How do I make it to where Dany doesn't seem overpowered? Or maybe that's what George is planning. Like, there's a lot of things, like, how does the whole others and Bran and Euron plot line go? Like, there's so many things that George has to write that he has set up that's going to be very difficult to do. And on that side of it, I sympathize with him quite a lot. But on the other side of this, I look at it and I go, you know, a lot of this seems to me that George just was not writing, right? Like, and this is what, you know, people, I don't think certain people understand why I'm so frustrated when I see George R.R. Martin post something like, this is what I'm always doing, like that meme on Twitter that we were talking about in the last video, is because you look at the numbers and you look at what he's told us and they don't add up, right? Like 1.4 to between 1.4 and 1.55 pages a week is nothing. Like to be coming out here and saying that this is, you know, all you do every day is just, it's just not true. It's not. Like maybe it's something like, okay, maybe he's brainstorming or editing stuff he's written in the past, and it's like, okay, you know, I maybe I can see that, but there's obviously not that much new material that's getting written on a yearly basis on average. And the way he talks about the series backs that up, in my opinion. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys.